My name is Gil Payette. I am a storyteller. I retell stories from Native American folklore based on my understanding of the myths, legends, and stories of the Native American people. There is a story from southern Arizona. It is a legacy of the Tohono O'odham people, the desert people. The story is in a small book, and I want to tell you a story about the book and the author before I tell you what the Tohono O'odham told their children. There is a 90-year-old woman who lives in Arivaca, Arizona. She lives in an adobe house with no electricity and 3 manual typewriters. Her name is Bird Baylor. For all of her adult life, she has been a school teacher and an author. She has taught school in tribal schools and in public schools with a high population of Native American children. She has written many books about the children, about the people, and about the desert. One of the books is called "And It Is Still That Way." In that book, there is a short story, maybe 5-6 paragraphs, called "How the Papago Got Some Shade." The book was put together because she asked kindergartners and first graders to come in for show and tell and to tell stories that their grandparents tell them at home. So each story has a tribal affiliation and a school affiliation. Back in the 70s, when the book was first written, the name Papago was used for one of the nations in southeastern Arizona. But Papago goes back to the days of the Spanish conquistadors. When the Spanish met these native people, part of their diet was gathering mesquite beans and cultivating tepary beans. The Spanish called them bean eaters, Papago. It was not a compliment. In their language, they are the Tohono O'odham. Tohono means desert, O'odham means people. They are the people of the desert. So today, to be politically correct, the story would be called "How the People Got Some Shade." I tell the story under the title, "Snake is Dying." Snake was a great spirit in the desert. Snake knew the mysteries of the desert. There was a time before what we call history when Snake called the healers to him, the great animals, the buffalo, the bear, the eagle, and had counsel with them. Everyone waited to see what the outcome of their talks would be. 4 days later, Snake came out to address all the animals gathered, the 4-legged ones, the ones that fly, the ones that crawl. And he told them that his days among them was limited, that he must prepare for his journey to the sky world. His family was grief-stricken, and his friends were very, very sad. You see, Snake was dying. They would do anything for their friend in his last days. But the first one to speak was Desert Tortoise. And Desert Tortoise said that his people had always found shelter, always had a resting place in a shallow hole in the ground. And this is what they would do with their friend Snake. The next to speak was Jack Rabbit. And Jack Rabbit said his father and his father's father before him told them that they took shelter under the plants. They were a windbreak. They were a resting place. And this is what they should do for their friend. And then the last to speak was Coyote. Coyote said, "We have been here since the creation. My people have been everywhere. We have seen the humans and where they live, what they use for shelters, where they rest. They have been in cliff dwellings. They have been in pit houses. They have been in teepees, wickiups. They have been in longhouses. This is what we will do for our friend." So each of these 3 animals, Desert Tortoise built a shallow resting place. Jackrabbit built a windbreak under a mesquite tree. And Coyote built a 4-post structure with just a top, no walls. Snake was brought and shown what they had done. I must tell you, Snake was moved by what his friends did for him. Snake cried at everything that was done. And he said these things would be used, save them. For many, many days, Snake sat under the structure that Coyote had built. It was called a wata, which means shade. Any of the animals would come and talk with Snake. But Snake did die. They took his body and they placed it in the shallow hole. They covered it with rocks from the mountains in all 4 sacred directions. They took their prayer bundles, their prayer sticks, their prayer feathers, and they placed them on the mesquite tree. It became an altar to their friend. And anyone who wanted to come and remember Snake would sit under the wata in the shade and think of their friend, look at their beloved desert, and be able to see in all 4 sacred directions. One day, people came up to wash the dry riverbed, and they saw these 3 things. They did not know what they were, but they knew they were special. Maybe they were sacred. They went back down the wash, respected everything, left it the way it was. But when they got back to their encampment, to their villages, to their settlements, they remembered the structure, and they built some for themselves. Wata, shade. They sat under them. They prepared their food. They made baskets. They made pottery. They talked with their friends. They sat in the shade and they rest. And that is how the people got some shade.
Wonderful.